behind me was on fire earlier today, and rural fire departments in Lynn County have had to fight multiple fires in recent weeks. I'll explain the dangers of those coming up in a live report.
After 2 years of talks, two major wireless companies plan to merge and create a 5G network.
And a Dubuque business is removing hateful or gang-related tattoos, giving people a second chance.
You're watching KCRG-TV9, now from your 24-hour news source. This is KCRG-TV9 News at 5.
We've just learned in the last 20 minutes that the state medical examiner has ruled the death of a woman who was pulled from a Cedar Rapids garage fire was the victim of a homicide. Gina Fredrickson died after police pulled her out of a garage yesterday. She was 38 years old. Now, this happened at 1848 I Street Southwest just after 7:30 Sunday morning. Police have not released her cause of death.
2958 Michael, fully engulfed. Raleigh fires on another fire at this time.
Fires this spring are causing problems for some departments. An example, the Raleigh Fire Department had to call in mutual aid immediately for this house fire today after its firefighters were already tackling a brush fire near Brandon. More and more brush fires have been happening lately thanks to the dry, windy weather conditions.
KCRG-TV9's Bria Love joins us in Raleigh, where that home caught fire just this afternoon. Bria, what is the situation there?
Well, Bruce and Beth, right over my shoulder, you can see the home back here. Nothing is even left of it. You could see some of the damage. It's gone. We were out here about half an hour after that fire started. We saw multiple departments responding to it. And as we mentioned, Raleigh was already assisting with the brush fire in Brandon when the call came out for this one, making taking control of all of these fires increasingly difficult for rural departments.
I can sit in the seat and control the flow of water and drive the truck at the same time.
Volunteer firefighter Jim Greif was the first person to call in this major brush fire in Prairieburg on April 27th.
Seen it coming across the field, I turned around and come back and got a fire truck, and by the time I had got there, it had crossed the highway and headed toward the neighbor's set of buildings.
That quick-moving fire sent Greif to the hospital.
Yeah, I got overheated and inhaled a little too much smoke, and it was no permanent damage.
With such a small volunteer staff, Greif attacked the fire for a few minutes alone before others came to help.
Luckily, we have mutual aid with all the fire departments around us, which we ended up calling that day.
Central City is one of those departments. Fire Chief James O'Leary says he's seen 8 to 10 brush fires in the last 2 weeks, which is double the typical amount.
Guys get tired. The more you have, the more tired they get, and when they just keep coming back to back, it becomes an issue of fatigue.
He asked that you use departments as a resource. They have special equipment to fight the flames.
Remember to call your fire department. No matter what district you live in or where you live, call your fire department, let them know you're doing it. That way they're a little bit more prepared, and they can maybe, offer to come out and help.
In Prairieburg, the landowner followed all the rules, but Greif says the wind picked up and it still got out of hand. He says following the guidelines can greatly cut down on the number of fires. O'Leary says you should be cautious. Make sure to read your burn permit and don't start a fire on a very windy day like a day like this. And also call your fire department so they can be on hand just in case something were to get out of hand. Live in Raleigh, Bria Love, KCRG-TV9 News.
Turning to meteorologist Chris Havley, Bria wasn't kidding. It is windy out there.
Yeah, that's an understatement. Bria is having to endure some winds that are over 30 miles per hour out there. We have some very dry conditions. Those two things, combined with the direction of the wind out of the south, has led to temperatures climbing well into the 80s across eastern Iowa. We are now at 83 in Cedar Rapids, 84 Iowa City, 80 in Dubuque, and 81 in Waterloo. Check out some of these current wind gusts. Current wind gusts have 46 miles per hour in Charles City, 40 mile per hour wind gusts in Waterloo. Looking at a 37 mile per hour wind gust right now being reported at the Eastern Iowa Airport. We saw that high fire danger because of those strong winds and the low humidity, but moisture is beginning to return to our atmosphere, and that's going to lead to more cloud cover here tonight, keeping us mild, but eventually that moisture will lead to chances for some rain when our first round comes tomorrow. We'll show you how much rain we could see by the end of the week coming up in a bit. Bruce?
Thank you, Chris. In a TV9 News follow-up tonight, authorities have released the name of the man who died when a shooting turned into a standoff in Bertram in Lynn County. The sheriff's office told TV9 it happened inside this home at Bertram Street and Skylark Drive. One man suffered a gunshot wound to his foot. The man police believed who shot him was Christopher Neagle. Neagle barricaded himself inside the house and wouldn't come out. Deputies later found him dead in the garage. They say he shot and killed himself.
President Trump today says U.S. immigration laws are weak and obsolete. This comes after a caravan of more than 150 migrants arrived at the U.S.-Mexico border yesterday, seeking to enter the U.S. legally under asylum. The migrants traveled from Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala. Today, during a news conference with the president of Nigeria, President Trump said there is no country in the world that has immigration laws like the U.S.
They've got to change, and they've got to change now, for the safety of our country.
The U.S. Border Patrol Commissioner says that port of entry has reached capacity and that the migrants might need to stay in Mexico until space and resources are available.
Adult film actress Stormy Daniels is now suing President Trump for defamation. Daniels claims she had an affair with Trump in 2006 and that in 2011 a man threatened her to keep quiet. Earlier this month on Twitter, President Trump called a forensic sketch of that alleged threat, the man who made it, a total con job, and said that man was non-existent. So Daniels filed a defamation lawsuit today in New York. Daniels is already suing Trump to get out of a non-disclosure agreement she signed with the president's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, back in 2016. Reports in Washington say Rear Admiral Ronnie Jackson will not be returning as the president's personal physician. In response, the administration only says Jackson is still assigned to the White House. The president had nominated Jackson to be Secretary of Veterans Affairs, but Jackson withdrew that amid allegations that he drank on the job and overprescribed medication. Jackson has denied those allegations.
T-Mobile and Sprint have agreed to merge after years of negotiations. The combined company would take on T-Mobile's name and leave just two other major wireless carriers in the U.S., Verizon and AT&T. Now, while a combined company might be able to offer a next-generation 5G network more quickly and broadly, there are still a lot of unknowns here, and the technology won't be coming nationwide until at least 2020. Sprint's CEO says the U.S. needs this to stay on top.
You know, there's a time the stars have to get aligned. The country needs 5G. That's the next wave of evolution. We cannot fall behind to China and South Korea, who are ahead of us on a 5G perspective.
Sprint and T-Mobile first discussed the merger in 2014, but plans stalled because of concerns about regulation from the Obama administration. Regulators in the Trump administration will have to sign off on the merger before it's final.
In a TV9 News update tonight, this marks day 3 today of teacher walkouts in Arizona. Many of them rallied at the state capitol to meet with lawmakers. They're demanding higher pay and more classroom resources. Republican Governor Doug Ducey has announced plans to increase teacher salaries 20% by 2020, but some teachers say that's not enough.
Boaters beware. Officials with the Coralville Lake say right now you can get stuck out on the water.
And a Dubuque tattoo business says it's willing to give people a chance at a clean slate by removing tattoos they regret. Stay with your 24-hour news source, KCRG-TV9.